Hello everyone, welcome back to PNW Traditions. My name is Melanie, and today we have an exciting project. I actually am recording this after I've already done it, so it's been a long day. But today we're going to do a beautiful cake. So the reason why I'm making this cake is for my church. We have been a church for a little over a year now, and we are going to have what they're calling a constitution service. So, hey, officially you're a church. And so I'm making this cake as a celebration cake for that. So, but this can be good for anything. It could be a small wedding cake, it could be whatever event, bridal shower, anything. So, come along with me and we will decorate this thing, and I will do my best to explain every step and show you how I do it.
All right, so first we're going to start with this frosting. It is a whip icing, and I can buy it at a wholesale place in these tubs, and they come frozen, and you just whip them right up. It's by far the best icing. I love whip icing. You can see how it just whips up. Super, super stiff and thick. And now I'm just going to load a piping bag. I have a star tip in the end of it. I'm just going to use that same star tip for everything, including the decorating, the edge piping, everything else like that. So I'm just going to load it, and then I want to be careful too as I'm loading it to try not to get too many air bubbles. So I'm trying to press it down into the piping bag. And if you've never used a piping bag before, it's super easy. All you do is twist and hold it at the top and squeeze evenly, and you can get really cool designs. You do not have to be a professional to use a piping bag. I am not a professional. I'm just a home cook, and I learned to do cakes from my mom and my grandma, and it's just something I like to do. So got it loaded, so I'll pull the sides up. I kind of mounted it up to the top so that it would be filled to the top. And then, so it's called burping the bag when you kind of squeeze it and you feel for like any air bubbles. And you want to squeeze a little bit out of the tip of it just to make sure that there's no air trapped in the end. And it looks like we're good to go. So, got that loaded. And, oh, this is handy. Just stick your piping bag inside a vase. This is just a long cylindrical vase that I have, and it works amazing. I also have another one, which you'll see for rinsing and wiping my knife as I spread the icing. So I already made vanilla cakes. They're just white cake. And I baked them, waited till they cooled, and then I just trimmed the tops off. And so as I'm unwrapping them, you can see that the tops are already trimmed off. So I'm going to add a little dollop of icing to this piece of cardboard. And I'm going to put it with the straight side down, not the cut side. We want cut side up. Clearing away a few crumbs. And then we're going to go in with some icing. And, oh, actually, I'm going to show you what fillings I have. So we're doing Bavarian cream filling with raspberry jam. And I just bought these from that wholesale food store. Again, you can get them in these big tubes. It's super convenient and easy. So those are going to be the fillings, but first we're going to take some icing and we're going to pipe a really thick border all the way around the outside. And I'm putting it on pretty heavy. This is going to create like a dam so that your fillings don't squish out when you put that top layer on. And I'm going to go ahead and do another round just to make it a little bit taller. So I am going to start with the fillings. We're going to do the Bavarian cream first. So I want a thicker layer of the Bavarian cream. So I'm going to go around in a circle, swirl it in with pretty heavy hand. You don't want to go too much with the fillings. Otherwise your cakes will just slide off of each other. But I want this layer to be thicker. We're going to go in pretty thin with the raspberry jam. My wedding cake, actually, we did a cheesecake filling with the raspberry jam. That was amazing as well. So this Bavarian cream is going to pair really well with it. So I just take a really small offset spatula and go around and smooth it all out. Make it nice and even, nice and pretty. And be sure to wipe that off too in between. You don't want to, I don't want these two to mix. I want it to really look layered when you slice into it. So now we're going to go ahead with the raspberry jam, and I want to do the same thing. I'm just going to do like a swirl, but I'm going to go really lighter. I'm going to go sparse and try and just create a super thin layer. You could do this with any flavors. Like I said, we've done cheesecake and jam, or you can just do jam, or if you have some homemade jam. I often use homemade jam for cake fillings. It's amazing. Huckleberry, I mean, the options are limitless. Whatever you like. So I'm very carefully spreading this, making sure that I'm not intermixing it with the Bavarian cream below. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to grab the other cake to stack on top. But this time, we're going to flip it around and we're going to be putting the cut side down. If I can get it out of the thing, you can see I've got the babies running around, my daughter's talking to me. Struggling with the wrapping. So yeah, you want to put the cut side down, and so this creates a very squared cake, right? So you don't have like this weird lump or mound in the middle. And when I do this, you're gonna see I don't get it on there perfectly. I just kind of flop it and it goes sideways. And that's totally okay. You just slide it forward. Not a big deal. So I'm lightly pressing around the edges to kind of squish it down. If you see some of that white icing sort of start to fall down to the sides, that's totally fine. That's what it's there for. And so I'm going to go ahead with the piping bag and I'm going to fill in some of that middle part. I want it to be all kind of very even and flush. So when we ice it, there's not a big indent right there. You can also, if you like, lose a little piece of cake, you can fill it in with icing. So never fear. There's always a way. Icing covers all things. So we're going to go in with a huge dollop on top. In fact, I think I'm going to use everything that's left in this bowl. And you just want to pile it on top, and then from there you can really work it down. You don't have to be too specific about this. Now I will say, traditionally when you're doing it with buttercream, you can come in with a crumb coat and, you know, little bits of cake and stuff like that in it. It doesn't matter because you're going to come back through, you let it chill, and then you come back through and ice it again. It's not as easy to do that with this whip icing, so I kind of forgive the crumbs a little bit with this whip icing. You can do a double coating, but honestly, chilling it doesn't really firm it up like it does buttercream. It still stays pretty soft, so I just do the best that I can. And honestly, you'll see when we ice this that there'll be quite a few naked spots and blank spots, and that's totally fine because we're going to cover it up with decoration anyway. So I changed the angle so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just spreading top. I'm right-handed, so I had to face the camera the correct way. So I spread it out really evenly on the top and brought a lot of it right to the edges, and then I'm just grabbing it from the edge and bringing it down. I'm just using sort of a swaying motion back and forth. You do not have to get it perfect at this stage. I will show you here in a second how you get it really, really smooth. Basically, right now you're just trying to cover the cake. Yeah, and see, you can rob a little bit from the top, so I've got excess icing there. You can rob a little bit from the top, bring it down, scrape it around, and if you really, really want to be pristine, you can put some parchment paper around the bottom edge so that you don't have to wipe it up or anything. Okay, so that other base I was telling you about is filled with hot water. I go ahead and dip my offset spatula. Well, actually this one is an offset, but my spatula. And now I'm kind of cutting in, and you can see I'm pressing against the cake, and I kind of have it at an angle, and I'm almost just scraping the excess off. Now you don't want to go digging into the cake and scraping everything that you just did away. Just light pressure, and the hot water keeps that knife able to glide across the icing like that and make it really nice and smooth. Now it's not going to be perfect, like I said, I'm not a professional, but it does make it pretty smooth. And you can see a little bit of the cake down there at the bottom. That's totally fine. We're going to cover that up with some pretty designs later. So just going around, doing the best that you can. And then we're going to smooth out the top. So I'm going to go around the top edge and hold this spatula at an angle and just kind of whip those little edges upward and into place. And the top does not need to be smooth. We're stacking this cake, and not very much of the top will be showing. And right here I kind of noticed that I had a little bit of a mound of icing, so I went ahead and scraped. I had quite a bit right there in the middle still, so I scraped a bit of it away. Just some smoothing out, and that's that. So now we're going to go ahead and move into doing the other cakes. I have 3 more. It's a 4-layer cake. Okay, so now we're going to move into securing the cake. So you can't just go stacking cake on cake without anything in between. Now, we do have little pieces of cardboard that each one is setting on, but that's not quite enough. That cardboard will settle into the cake. So what we're going to do is we're going to use straws. You can use wooden dowels, anything like that, but this is pretty much the most inexpensive way you can do it. And it doesn't matter, I have multiple colors. You can get straws from McDonald's and use them. So we're just going to press them in, and I'm going to use 4 for all of the bigger cake layers, and I'm going to put them in sort of a diamond pattern or a square depending on how you're looking at the cake. And this is just going to brace the next layer and keep it from sinking into this bottom one and just totally crushing it. So I've got them placed. I've pressed them all the way to the bottom of the cardboard. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors, I'm going to use my thumb and my finger to get right there at the edge. And I'm going to lift it just a little bit and snip right below my fingertips so that it will fit just right below the surface of the cake. And I'm going to go ahead and do this with all four. You don't want them to be sticking up. You want them to be just below the surface of that icing. Now we're going to go ahead and do the second layer, because it's also going to have one stacked on it, so it needs some security too. And I think I'm trying to get a good angle so you guys can see what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and put this cake on top of that one. Teeter-totter it very carefully. This one has a little bit of a lip on it, so it was a little easier to transfer onto the cake. And as you can see, it takes up a lot of the space. So worrying about the icing on the top of each cake, don't need to do that. So I'm doing the same exact process with the straws for this cake. Now we have the top two layers that I'm doing, and I just did 3 for this little cake. I'm going to go ahead and put that topper on, and you see it's a little bit crooked. As I was doing this, I noticed it's offset. It looks weird because I have put a high side with a high side and a low side with a low side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to alter it to fix it. I'm going to lift that top cake and I'm going to twist it to where the low side meets the high side of the cake below it. And you'll see immediately how well it changed it. You see that? Much more level, but I did get some on my thumb. And so we're just going to fix that. No problem if those types of things happen. Just use a little bit of your icing, your piping bag, squirt a little on there. I'm going to spread it out with a spatula. And you don't have to make that perfect either. You're going to be going around the base with some decorating and not a big deal. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to take my piping bag and show you a few things that we're going to do some border decorations. The options. So this one is, I think, called a seashell. You press upward and then pull back. And actually that's what I originally thought I was going to go with, but I ended up not doing that. And then you can just go with a traditional star around the edges. Or you can go with sort of a rosette that's connected. So you go around one way and then around the opposite direction. And that is what I ended up going with. pretty pleased with how that turned out. Looks pretty good. So if you have some blank spots in between your piping, just go in with some little stars and fill it in. If you can see the cardboard in certain areas, just fill it in. So we've chosen some white lilies and some deep scarlet red lilies. We're going to be using the flowers and some of the greenery to decorate this. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my little snips and I'm going to go in this pattern and I'm going to start from the top and try and angle it down. Now this is a tricky thing. Some people master this where they can just see the symmetry. You want things to be actually a little bit asymmetrical on a cake. This is just definitely something you have to have an eye for, but you want to offset your colors, offset your flowers, and you want to include a ton of the leaves. I know that sounds really weird, but if you just have flowers on there, they look like just big naked flowers. So you need to throw a whole bunch of these leaves in, which you've seen me do right here. It sets the whole thing off. As you can see, it fills it in, it makes it look full and wonderful. I mean, flowers in nature have tons of greenery around them, so you want it to make it look as real as possible. And it's a little nerve-wracking to stick all those flowers in the cake. You can see I was trying to decide what to put right there. I found it a whole nother big flower, but I decided to just go with this little bud, and it filled that space in beautifully. And I could not be happier with the way this turned out. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I hope you guys learned something and you try this.